Today I'm going to be breaking down how I color grade in Final Cut Pro using Dehancer Film Emulation. And I just want to start this video by saying I'm no pro colorist. I just kind of make my adjustments, use Dehancer. I end up getting results that I really like, and usually other people think they look decent enough. I'm just going to be going over this video we already shot and kind of show how I use Dehancer in Final Cut Pro, and also showing what other adjustments I make in certain scenarios. So I'm opening up Final Cut, and we got my timeline. I'm gonna just go over a few shots from this. So I'm gonna take these, separate them out. I always start by adding on a conversion LUT. In this case, I have a few in here, film LUTs from a few different cameras. A few I bought off of Volandes. Shout out Volandes. Then I got these generic ones. I don't even know where I got these, but I have these loaded into my FX30, and so I usually film with these as far as when I'm getting a feel for exposure and all that. So this one, it brings down the shadows quite a bit. So in this case, I'd probably, leave it like somewhere right about there, and then adjust the contrast after I throw on Dehancer. Go in here, Film Emulation, throw on Dehancer, and then Rec 709. So I just leave it at that, since this is what the input and output is. Kind of gives like a base look, and already looks kind of unique, but it's not polished by any means. So I start by taking off the film grain, taking off any adjustments, and just leaving these to mess with. So from here, I will leave it where it is as far as how the shadows are and the highlights, and then I will go through, basically just browse through these and see what ones I'm kind of feeling, what kind of made sense for how I planned out the video, and see what ones I like. Usually I like one that's a little bit more like neutral and not so drastic, and then I can kind of make a few adjustments. But then there's some times where it makes a lot of sense to use something drastic like this, what is it? Anatoly green. I used this on a video one time and went pretty crazy with it, and it kind of had like a cool mafia black and white green look that I liked, and it made sense. But for this video, I'm just gonna go with the simple one that it throws over the Kodak Vision 3 250D, and then bump the exposure a little bit, put up the contrast, maybe bump that a little bit, and then equal it out, and just kind of eyeballing it. I don't use I don't even know what they're called. I usually don't use the scopes, to be honest, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to throw it on there, and I'm going to try to keep it in mind, so I'm not giving y'all bogus ass tutorial that's super amateur. I'm going to adjust that. I just kind of eyeball it, see what I'm liking, and then maybe just the temperature a little bit. And I usually always try to just look at the sky. If the sky is turning too warm and doesn't look closer to white or closer to blue, since this is sky, I usually figure that that's going too far. Like that would be too far, or this would be too far. And this could even pull off as like a unique look, but I try to stay in the middle so I can kind of be more neutral about it there. Then if you want to go here, you want to adjust, add a little bit of yellow, add a little bit of blue, add a little bit of magenta, maybe pull that back a little bit. It just kind of adds a little bit of blue to the shadows. Kind of added it to the skin, which I didn't really like. Honestly, most of the time me using Dehancer, it's just me fucking around with buttons until I get something I like, and it's nothing super precise and surgical. I'm just a YouTube graduate after all, just messing around. Yeah, I kind of like how that looks. Just a light bit more yellow, but this is still kind of good temperature. Pull that back a little bit, and then mess around with some color curves and try to make the skin a little bit more orange, make everything else a little bit more blue. That's kind of going a little too far. Kind of like how that looks. Kind of puts like a bluish tint, but kind of almost like a teal and orange look. Looks pretty unique. Then I'd probably go add some color wheels, mess around with what way these are going, try to get it a little bit more blue, try to get the shadows not too noticeably blue. See, that kind of brought it down already, just adding that. Doesn't look super blue. Then the mid-tones, probably just keep how they were, to be honest, from the last adjustment, and then boost the highlights just very slightly, try to keep the sky pretty neutral, not super hot. Maybe pull that a little bit more green. So kind of takes away the blue that we added, kind of made it pop a little bit more in that way. We want to mess with the saturation, grab his skin right here, which I figured would be right about here. Yeah. Then you're also picking up that orange in the back. If you're just making slight adjustments, I feel like as long as you get the skin kind of popping a little bit more than it was before, it's an improvement. So yeah, it's just like a very slight difference that you can see it in the scope over here. Pop that out a little bit more. What else do we want to mess with? Maybe we want to make the sky a little bit more blue. Looks like it's right about there. Or honestly, I kind of like it a little desaturated almost. Not pushing blue as much. Yeah, I kind of like that. Kind of dropping that down a little bit. Yeah, actually, I like the blue. Then it kind of creates more separation. And it's kind of, or I guess contrast would be the right word, with how the sky's blue, skin's a little more orange. Kind of like how that looks. This is kind of how we went with our adjustments. The LUT, kind of bring everything together. Dehancer, and then some other adjustments to kind of get how we want it. And then maybe I go down a little bit with that, make it a little more dark, drop the contrast very slightly. Looks a little too contrasty, so add this back in a little bit. Bring the contrast down. I feel like that's a pretty good spot to be at. Then I would just take this over to other clips, copy, still is in that same feel. Probably just adjust stuff like the temperature, definitely the exposure because it's inside and I'm gonna deal with the sky now, and boost that, boost the tonal contrast. They probably look a little too yellow. I'm probably come into one of these, make an adjustment that won't make that so dramatic. See, that's yellow. This is kind of what that blue look I like. So we're gonna go into here. We're just gonna take this and kind of put it more of like this magenta pinkish. I feel like that looks better. It's not as yellow. I take the shadows. Yeah, I like how they are. It looks pretty neutral. Sort of balanced. The red's popping a little bit, but it's probably where I would start adding stuff like a vignette, which I really like how those look. So drop the feather. Usually I like something sort of like that shape, maybe a little bit more balanced in the corner for how it is from the top and the bottom. And drop the size, drop the exposure, feather that. Then we got a cool little vignette on the edges, and then you kind of just adjust if you want it to be in more, and then feathered more, or feathered very lightly and just in the edges, kind of just playing around how you want it. I usually go for something more like that, just subtly in the corners, maybe a little smaller. And sometimes I have to go back and adjust these to darknesses in the corners. And then if you want to go ahead and add stuff like grain and halation, you can do that. So this is with 35, just adds that little boost on the highlights and the edges. Halation, for this I'm gonna keep it pretty clean. And if anything, when I do grain, it's usually pretty subtle, and I'll do that at the 50. It usually makes me pretty happy, and then it kind of blends in with some of the noise if there's some noise in the shadows, and it kind of makes it kind of blend together and make it look like you didn't fuck up on your exposure. On this one, I'm not going to add grain. I'm just going to leave it clean, curious how it is. But I'm going to go on here and add a vignette real quick. So all these inside clips, I'm gonna copy and paste from this one. Let's see how that looks. Put that over. Already looking pretty damn cool. I'd say this is just probably a little bit too exposed. Yeah, it's more where I want it to be. Drop that a little bit. Drop the exposure. Balance that out. Probably need more contrast. So now I'm kind of pushing it where I'm kind of getting into, it's getting a little too dark. But I'd say dropping that and then dropping that a little bit. It's usually just a balancing act between these two, I find. And then if I need to make any extra adjustments, then I go into color wheels or whatever and try to make really, really fine adjustments. But most of the time, this gets the job done and it looks good enough. Usually I'm trying to make sure contrast is pretty even throughout the clips, because some feel too dark or some have like this really, like where it's black, it's almost like a, off black, it's not actually black. So I'm trying to make sure all the clips look even, because there's been a few music videos where looking back, I'm like, oh shit, I kind of made the adjustments wrong on that, and it was like really, really, really dark. And then some of them, it was like this off black, and when I had to fade the black transitions, it didn't look good. So that's something I try to look out for, but that already looks pretty good. Yeah, I like how that looks magenta wise. It's not super, super yellow and blue. No complaints about that. So we're just gonna copy and paste that on the next clip. See how this turns out. Already looks pretty good. Probably just drop the exposure comp, up the contrast, maybe boost that a little bit more, boost the contrast a little bit more. I really want this to feel like super high contrast. I don't want it like, I don't want it like that. I want it really gritty and dark. For this scene right there where it's bright, but this is dark over here. Adjust the temperature a little bit. That's looking more green. I want it to be like a teal, so that's kind of like in the perfect spot. Maybe go a little bit more blue. Drop that a little bit more, boost that a little bit more. See how it looks against the other clip. Yeah, I feel like that looks pretty good. Maybe just tone it back a little bit. Maybe you whip out the wheels and see if you can get it a little bit more how you want it, but not adjust. Yeah, see, now that's more where I want it. You still can see the shadows, but a lot more contrasty. It looks good. Go into the wheels, drop that just slightly. Yeah, I feel like that looks like it makes more sense contrast wise. Maybe boost the highlights a little bit. Maybe drop the mid-tones. Boost the shadows just a little bit. Boost the highlights. So this is the last clip, orange ass clip. Let's see how this looks with copy and paste. Okay, looks pretty cool. Already pretty vibrant, already pretty Euphoria-esque neon looking lights, and this is just a street light. Let's see what our adjustments are doing. So most of these make it plenty more orange. So honestly, I could probably chill out on the saturation on this. I'm just gonna reset these and then not delete it, but if I was actually color grading this, I'd probably just delete them. I want it to feel super orange, but at the same time, like, it's really like how these clips look back to back, you know, just that contrast in color going blue to orange. I really don't want to help this get more blue. I really like how it's really vibrant, honestly. I'll probably keep it somewhere like right there. Mess around with that's a little too extreme. Maybe I'm just gonna bring this all down and then do a balancing act more closer. Probably somewhere like right there. It's a little too dark. Boost that up. Boost that. Ooh, yeah, I think that's kind of where I want it. Got a little slight vignette. Maybe on this one, bring it down a little bit more just because it's kind of, he's outside under a big light. It's kind of dramatic and shit, so. See how all these clips go together color-wise and see how they look. So we got the orange one, this one. Honestly, looking at this one now. See, this is what happens. I go back and I look at stuff and I want to change it and make adjustments just because I'm like, you know, that's just the process. You know, you make an adjustment on one layer, then you kind of realize that you want to go a different way on another one. So I don't know, something's just off. I feel like it's a little bit too bluish. Yeah, so it's definitely this layer, giving it all that blue shit. Tone it down. Yeah, that's better. I just dropped that right there and it's a little bit less blue. Yeah, so I like how that looks. So here's kind of how the clips go together. Blue, super bright orange, the house, outside, and then under the spotlight. Yeah, I think that's honestly how it sums up my color grading process. Simply put, let me know what else makes sense for me to kind of go over tutorial-wise, or anything else about my process behind my videos. Yeah, have a good one.